Good afternoon, everybody. We're gonna do the wastewater pretreatment compliance section now. I'm Angela Walker, and I hold a Class 1 wastewater operator license in the state of Georgia. I have a bachelor's in psychology, which really helps dealing with the public. And I'm working on a master's in environmental policy to help me in this job particularly.
Let me ask you a question just for clarity. Wastewater 3 is the lowest?
Yes, 1 is the highest.
Okay.
I also at one time held a lab analyst and a collection license, which Kirk's people hold, but I let those go when I got the 1 because everything falls under the 1. Because you have to pay for every one to be recertified every 2 years. On the first slide, and I think it's the second slide, maybe the third, is actually a list of the duties that encompass my job here at JWSC. I'll try to read through them quickly. Under the industrial pretreatment, which is mainly our industries, more commercial laundries, that type of thing that have chemicals. I monitor the industrial discharge to the sanitary sewer system. I inspect the industries for compliance with pretreatment permits. I issue pretreatment permits to industries with the pretreatment facilities and/or which have special regulations, like the car washes and the laundromats. They cannot use high phosphorus detergents, so we have to monitor those to make sure that they're not creating a lot of phosphorus for us, because then it'll create foam in our wastewater plants. I also receive the monthly monitoring reports from all industries by the 15th of every month. I review those to ensure that they've completed all of their sampling. They have individual labs that are external to their businesses that actually do their testing, so that it's a third party. I complete the surcharge billing for the required industries, which entails collecting the flow data, the BOD, and the total suspended solids information, and then I send that to John's department to finance so that they can actually create the industrial bills. I collect the samples of the industries when we need sampling with the help of the lab. They mainly go out and do it. We coordinate with the industries to find out, to let them know when we're coming and to guarantee that they have flow for us. The lab handles all of the actual sampling and the collecting and the sending off to the labs that need those samples. And those are done yearly, and more often if we have problems with one of the industries. We actually have portable samplers where we can go out and set them up just to monitor what they're discharging that day. Pinova is unique because they have a line come straight into the plant, so we have access to it 24 hours a day if we would like to sample it. I complete a yearly monitoring report to the EPD that is for all industries. It is due by May 1st this year, and it will include everything from last May to the end of this April. And I recommend fines for the industries that are out of compliance. We have a progressive schedule. They're usually issued notices of violation, and if that doesn't work and they continue to violate the same thing, then they start incurring fines. On the FOG program, fats, oils, and grease that Kurt was talking about, I understand why I came behind him now. I inspect the restaurants and the food service establishments, the grease interceptors located at those to ensure compliance with the city and county water use ordinances and state regulations. I receive the manifest on required scheduled pump outs for these facilities. We issue them a pump out 3 months, 1 month, 1 week, and they have to maintain that pump out schedule. Their individual haulers come in, pump the tank, and they take it out of Glynn County for disposal. It does not go into our wastewater treatment plants. We input the data from those manifests into a database that's called X2C. We do that with the grease removal and also with the backflow inspections that come in every year for Derek's department. I inspect the hauler trucks to make sure that they will actually can do the job, and that they're actually not faulty, not leaking grease, that their pumps actually work. So I inspect those. I'm one of 6 inspectors in the state that actually inspects those trucks, and they come from Florida, South Carolina, Georgia. So we inspect anything that dumps in Georgia has to have a FOG inspection done yearly, or they cannot pump here in Georgia. We inspect the gas stations and mechanic shops for oil water separators to make sure that they're getting the oil out They work different than the grease separators, but they're all monitored under the Fats, Oils, and Grease program. We work with the Georgia Environmental Health and the U.S. Department of Agriculture to ensure compliance with the food services, fish markets, bakeries, hotels, and care facilities like your nursing homes. And we get a lot of those flushable wipes. They are flushable, but they do not dissolve. So that is one of our main problems that we face in the sewer system going to the plants. And actually at the plants, it's really hard on our pumps and smaller lines. We enforce the fees that were established by the last rate resolution for the businesses in non-compliance of the city and county ordinances. And I work with the grease haulers to ensure that the businesses keep their schedule. We also work with the grease haulers. We go out, we meet them on site so that we can actually inspect the tanks empty. Some of them hold 1,000, 1,500. We even have some tanks that hold 4,000 gallons here in Brunswick. And we cannot inspect those tanks if they're full. So we work with the haulers so that we know when they're coming. They call us. If we're not busy with something else, we go out and meet them so that we can actually see that tank empty to inspect, to make sure that the T's have not fell off, that their filters have not clogged or come loose. So we actually go out there with them and do that. Other areas of compliance that we handle there, we review and approve the building plans to ensure compliance with the sewer use ordinances, because any new business that comes in with a grease trap or water separator, a lint trap, hair trap, we have to monitor to make sure that they are putting in the right unit for that size of flow that they're going to have coming from there, so that that stuff does not get into the sewer lines. I inspect new grease traps when they're installed. I go out and make sure that they put the piping in correctly with Todd's crew, with his inspectors who actually go out and inspect when they're putting it in the ground. Then I go in and I do all of the internal plumbing. They have certain inches above the floor they can be, and certain different filters that have to go in them, and certain places where the divider walls can be. We have to verify that there is a divider wall, because some of them do not have a divider wall, and if they don't, the grease doesn't separate out and get held into the tank. So we have to watch for that. I inspect hair traps, lint traps, and solid separators. We inspect and monitor commercial laundries, laundromats, hair salons, dog groomers, and car washes. And we investigate complaints of violations of the sewer use ordinance and the illegal discharges of sewage, oils, chemicals, and other substances. If Kirk's guys go out to a line and there's a dog groomer on the line, they will bring me dog hair in a bag to my office. So, yeah, that's the poodle. So we try to keep that out. So the current compliance areas that we actually focus on right now with the JWSC is the fog separators and the industrial. The fog separators now have a $175 fee that is added. If the business is not in compliance and we have to make a visit, we can tack on that $175 fee to the business for not being in compliance. There's other forms of separators, but we don't have anything really in our ordinance that allows us to enforce those at the moment, other than just, we do have where we can shut the water off. We can send the business a letter, tell them we're gonna cut the water off if they don't take care of their problem. If they don't respond, then we can send them another letter. At that time, then they have a meeting with Mr. Junkin, a hearing they call it, and then he can decide whether to actually pull the water meter and cut the water off to the business. If we pull a meter at a business that has food service, we have to notify the Environmental Health Department, and they go out and shut the business down. So they usually will come into compliance once they get the first letter, because they do not want us to shut it down, because then they can't make any revenue. We have a fine in there for the grease hauler trucks if they're not certified, if they don't come and get inspected, there's a $1,000 fine if they're caught discharging or pumping the tanks in Glynn County. We can fine them $1,000 if they're not in compliance with that regulation, because it's a state regulation. With the industries, we have 4 plants permitted. We have another 5 plants that will be permitted this year. And with the industries, if they do not maintain compliance, they can be fined up to $1,000 per day per occurrence. They cannot be fined more than $1,000 per day at this moment, because they are, the ordinances, the county and city ordinances only allow for $1,000 a day, so we have to stay into that. but we have some industries, their water bill is $60,000. If there's $1,000 fee tacked on, they never notice it. So it's cheaper for them to pay the fee than to really fix the problem. If we've got a little business, like we have one that's only like $300 a month, they notice and they come into compliance pretty quickly. This is the not so fun side of fog. This is Frank Clark. We had a hauler that didn't know what he was doing at one of our schools. The hauler's in front of Frank. We won't say what he was saying at that moment, but when he was supposed to be sucking the grease, he turned on the blow motor and it blowed the hose off. Frank saved me that day. I was standing on the other side, so he got all of the grease, but that's the not so fun side. So he took one for the company that day, rode back with me in my truck, and my truck stunk from now till it was clean. The fog is hauled from the businesses, and it disposes of these facilities' grease at places located outside of Glynn County. Some in Savannah, some in Jacksonville, some in Alma, Georgia, some all the way to South Carolina. They're placed on a regular schedule, and if the schedule is not adhered to, that's when we issue the fees. We have currently 406 larger grease traps located inside Glynn County, and we have about 75 smaller inside units. Two of the industries also have grease removal systems because they're biological plants. So they have grease removal services that also use our fog trucks to haul their grease from there. We also monitor the grease coming from Sea Island because they have several grease traps there that dump into our lines, and the haulers actually send me the manifest from those. So we work well with the Cloister, and I think they actually have 4 out there that we monitor and that dump into our lines. So we actually work well with them, keeping their stuff pumped. Fog inspectors must be certified. I actually went to Savannah when I first came here and learned all about the fog through one of the inspectors. And then I went to a conference where they train you. They've since changed the layout, and now it will be through the Carl Vinson Institute at the University of Georgia, and it will actually be like a 3-year certification plan like the code enforcement officers are given. So it'll be a more extensive certification now. I'm a member of the Fog Alliance. I'm a chairperson of the membership and scholarship part of that alliance, where I monitor people who want to be members. I go out and I try to help recruit new members for the alliance. And I'm also the co-chair of the Pretreatment Committee for the Georgia Association of Water Professionals. And now we'll see if we can get this little video to play. This is actually one of our pretreatment plants located here in Brunswick. It's the King and Prince location. This video was actually created for a product that they have there, but it will give you a little idea of what our pretreatment plants actually look like, if it works.
It works. It'll open up Firefox. I tested it last night. Patience. Please don't click again.
I won't click again, Jay.
It's all over. I tried to explain that to him.
Yeah.
Jay's gonna have to come quick.
No,
There it comes.
It's comes, there it is.
And a DAF is a diffused air flotation system. In our plants that we have aerators, but we separate the solids and they float to the bottom. In this type of system, the solids come to the top and it's skimmed off from the top, where we pull ours from the bottom into the municipal wastewater plant. That's the solids that we're taking off. That's not going into our sewer system.
Very Miami Vice music we have there.
It came with the video.
Oh, yeah.
No, I don't want to jump up and land.
Once it's skimmed off from there, it goes into a holding tank to where they can further dispose of it. And this unit that they're actually showing the video for is actually a system that takes the water out. It's a centrifuge that spins all the water back out. That goes back to their wastewater system, and then the sludge is pumped into those 2 tanks on the right, to where it is actually pumped off from our grease haulers. These are the solids once the water comes out of it. The purpose of their pretreatment plant is to keep all of this out of our lines. This is one of the operators that I work with out there playing in the sludge. The liquid goes back into their DAP where it's then further treated and comes to us. And that's the outside of that unit. So now it just goes into more of that company's product. Uh-oh, I turned it off, didn't turn it off. Hey man, there you go. Thank you. And those guys have won Plant of the Year several times for indirect discharge through the Georgia Association of Water Professionals. I went up with them last year to Athens to the industrial conference, and they won 2 awards. These are other areas of compliance. This is actually on the left is a solid separator. It mainly removes dirt. We don't have a lot of those here. We have some in the car washes, the commercial car washes, like on the end of K Street and 17. They actually have 2 solid separators and 1 oil water separator located in there. And the trucks on the right are actually some of the trucks I inspect for this, for the grease hauling. The bottom one is actually one like our VACCons. We do have some of those. One of our companies has 3 of those that actually are able to pump the deeper units and the more harder to pump units. We have one on Sea Island that is 30 feet in the ground. So regular hauler trucks can't pump those. Their pumps are not strong enough. This is a copy of the budget. You actually have a copy because this is not a good copy on the screen. But the main thing is that the department has a budget of $77,900 a year, but it's $18,000 in the hole. That's because we have, if you'll look up to the technical services, we have contracts with Brown and Caldwell who actually do all of our writing of our permits, do all of our local limits. They help us with our permit renewals to the EPD. And in the beginning, a lot of discharge was coming out of the last director's budget. And I think this year it got added into this budget. So that's where the big difference is that actually causes the budget to go under, is those technical services. We won't require that amount of technical services in the future every year. Only years when we have to have the local limits pre-approved or maybe a permit will it be a little higher. We've gotten everything done now except for the Southport permit that is being renewed now, and I think that's actually under Mr. Ryle's budget, but a lot of the Brown and Caldwell stuff comes under mine. So that's where the bulk of the stuff in this budget is handled, is with those technical services. Because they're chemists, they're engineers, and they dedicate their time to actually just looking at what the effluents of the plants can actually handle and what the marshes can handle that they dump into. So we can't put any more on it than the marsh can actually absorb and take care of. That's what they call the local limits. Anything over that, all our pretreatment permits are based on that. So they have to meet those local limits, and we at the plants actually have to meet those local limits. That's part of our EPD requirements. The codes and laws that we use for enforcement here in the JWSC is the federal regulations for the backflow preventer requirements. And the state EPD requires a pretreatment requirement if you send out if you treat more than 5 million gallons a day at your wastewater plant, you are required by the EPD to have a pretreatment permit for all industries that can affect your plant. Every industry in Glynn County is not permitted because a lot of them do not discharge anything to the plants that would be detrimental. We actually have 2 plants that are over the 25,000 gallon per day, so they are permitted. And then we actually have 2 plants that, one plant meets over that. It is actually over the 25,000 gallon limit, but it is also categorical, which means they're monitored by certain other restrictions than just the regular restrictions you would get with a food processing plant. They have a lot more strenuous. We have one metal plating company, and then we have one that actually treats, removes the turpentine and the rosin from pine tree stumps. So those are actually categorical, and they're treated differently than just a biological manufacturer, because they send things to the wastewater plant that the wastewater plant cannot treat. So that will either pass through or settle in our sludge. So they have to be monitored more diligently than the bacterial, because the biological plants, we charge them a surcharge. We regroup our money for just treating for the bacteria that have to eat on the BOD, and the settling of the total suspended solids. That's the bulk of what they send us. Some phosphorus, because they use cleaning in their cleaning processes. But these other 2 we have one that uses 4 sheets of chemicals. So that's a lot of stuff that can go in that we have to monitor to make sure that they don't send it to us. We also have areas of compliance that are not being enforced with the illegal water usage and improper cross connection. We have been gathering the data after we met with the compliance and legislative committee yesterday. John's department did a presentation on the way we try to regroup our money from those things, but it's very hard. You need someone dedicated to do that. We need changes to our ordinances, especially in the backflow preventer area and in some of the pretreatment area, because as I said earlier, it only does the pretreatment and the fog. A lot of the stuff is not regulated, it's not in our standards. The lint traps, the hair traps, people don't want to use it because it's not strictly spelled out for them in there what product to use, which we do not tell them. We tell them a list of what they can use in certain things, but our standards are being revised so that we can include more items, because I had some people call me yesterday about it's basically a dog grooming place, and they're putting floor drains in their system, but they've never heard of putting any type trap on it to keep the hair out of our systems. So I'm gonna send him some information on some places and some products that he can get, but he just wanted to send us all of that stuff after they wash down the floors, and we can't have that, or Kirk's people will be back in my office again, so we don't want that. We also have the sanitary sewer overflows. A lot of that's private systems or private citizens. We don't really back charge for that. We've just began trying to back charge some of it, and it's hard to find out who to back charge to and to actually enforce, because you have to jump through hoops and have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed in order to do these things. So those are the areas that are either under-regulated or are not being regulated currently by the JWSC. And for the future areas of concern, in order to be efficient and compliant in a compliance and enforcement area for the JWSC, we need to reorganize and create a compliance department which puts compliance and enforcement first and continuous. It needs to be dedicated. We don't have the staff to actually enforce everything we need to enforce. You saw from the 3 sheets of my duties that I have a lady that helps me 1 day a week, but in a week's time, you can't enforce all of these things properly and do a good job at all of these things and keep people in line when you have so many other things going on. The people on John's department, they are also doing meter reading and other things while they're out there trying to also do enforcement of people stealing water, and Derek's people fight cross connection, people not wanting to put in the backflow preventers. And one of the main things that we face in our departments is that when we try to enforce something or have water cut off, then people will call either our city or county or some other public official, and then they end up with their way. But a lot of times it's not that they cannot do what they're supposed to do, it's that they don't want to do what they're supposed to do. And so water is one of the cheapest actual utilities that you use. Your cable bill is higher than water, and that's actually a luxury. So we need to make people recognize that we are here, we've got to stay. We're a very important service because they can't function without water. And we need them to understand that we have bills to pay also. If we don't start putting compliance and enforcement at the forefront, then we're the ones that's gonna continue to lose money and not have our organization respected in the county. Like the power will cut your power off, the gas will cut your gas off, and the cable, they'll cut it off real quick. So we have to come up with them and make them realize that we're not something you can just forget about or put us last on your budget. So we need to start working on trying to find a way to get our compliance together so that everyone is in the same area. We can get training for this, and we can have people dedicated to these positions so that the jobs can get done, and that's their only jobs, is to do these things. So as you saw from our budget in pretreatment, it's inadequate. So we need a bigger budget to actually do what we need to do. The ordinance changes, we need those changed for the city and the county. Before we can change them here at the JWSC Commission, we have to have them approved by the city and county commissions. So we have to go before them with a list of what we want changed to be more efficient in our organization and more productive. So we need to get those things changed. We also need to start collecting more of our missed revenue. And that's mainly on John's department right now, but if we had a compliance department who could take care of all this, then some of that stuff could be turned over from John's department, from Derek's department, from especially Kirk's department, with all of the SSOs and the type things that we deal with, customers hitting our pipes and then hollering we didn't have them marked properly. And so, you know, those type things we need to be able to regroup. And to have the personnel to actually run a compliance department, you need approximately 5 positions to do it efficiently and effectively. You need a compliance manager, you need 1 industrial pretreatment inspector, which would be part of the job that I do. And because of that, we actually have 4 industries right now that are permitted, but this year we'll permit 5 more. So that's 5 more permits a month. And those permits come in with a month's worth of lab data. There's approximately 200 pages of lab data to each one of those reports that come in from their independent labs. There's inspections of those industries. There's working with them when they have problems. And then the billing, all of that goes under just the pretreatment. Then you need a code enforcement officer who could go out and do more of the everyday stuff of monitoring these closed accounts, monitoring the accounts that are deficient, working with them, giving them a call saying, hey, we have payment plans. You can come in and pay. We don't want to cut your water off, but we need you to work with us. You need 2 employees to handle the cross connection and the fog inspectors. And Derek is so gracious, he wants to give away his backflow to me, but we need personnel to actually run that. So in order to do all of that, you need at least 2 people who can handle the backflow inspecting, the cross connections, violations, and all of the fog inspecting that's being done so that you can cross-train. Any questions?
Commissioners? Okay. Thank you much.